what caused the fire. Yeah. So when I just heard people shouting out fire, fire, and I see smokes, and the heat was now too much in the tent. Now I had to go out.
And the G20 Health Ministers meeting will discuss various issues on the second and final day of the meeting in Polokwane in South Africa's Limpopo province today. The discussions include progress made in ending AIDS by 2030, as well as steps to achieve equal pay for work of equal value. The ministers will also look at ways of eradicating all forms of workplace violence and discrimination in the healthcare sectors by 2028. Rendaniera Lipaswa reports.
According to the UNAIDS, there was approximately 41 million people living with HIV worldwide at the end of 2024. Two-thirds live in the sub-Saharan Africa. In the same year, an additional 1.3 million people were newly infected with HIV, 45% of whom are women and children. Health ministers from the G20 countries will discuss ways to make the HIV vaccine Lenacapavir a twice-yearly injection that has shown exceptional effectiveness in preventing HIV to reach high-risk populations. I am Randanira Lipasa in Polokwane.
And the son of Zimbabwe's late President Robert Mugabe has been released on bail following his arrest last month over unlawful possession of cannabis. The Harare magistrate Lisa Mudenderegi had issued a warrant of arrest for Robert Mugabe Jr. after he failed to appear in court for his routine remand. Police searched a sling bag he was wearing at the time and allegedly found 2 small sachets of cannabis. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Mmatsheko.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Zambia has bolstered its technical team for the upcoming AFCON 2026 in Morocco. And Aston Martin has restructured its department before the 2026 Formula One season. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Every voice matters. Every moment counts. Celebrate life with Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Now in your pocket. Africa Update with Lulu Kapu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Matapelo Mahapi and Figile Lingwati with our news updates and sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406 9126. 4126. It is 12:07 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
Well, today on #Africa Update, Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces, or RSF, has agreed to a humanitarian ceasefire following an 18-month siege with blocked humanitarian aid. The RSF has admitted there were violations committed by individuals, with some having been arrested. Now, our question to you today is this a little too late for the people of Sudan who have been severely impacted by the war? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126. #Africa Update Us.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
The National Press Club, in collaboration with the Embassy of Sudan, held a media briefing on the developments in Sudan in Pretoria, South Africa. Sudan's ambassador to South Africa, Osman Abu Fatima Adam Mohammed, addressed journalists on the latest situation. Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces has announced it has accepted a proposal from the United States and several Arab nations for a humanitarian ceasefire, expressing openness to further talks on ending hostilities in the country's prolonged conflict. Now, we are joined on the line by a Channel Africa reporter, Michael Mbewe, who attended the briefing. Michael, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Good afternoon to our listeners across the continent of Africa and beyond, Lulu.
Now, Michael, what key message did Ambassador Osman Abu Fatima Adam Mohammed deliver regarding the latest in Sudan and the RSF's announcement and Sudan's position on the proposed ceasefire?
Well, Lulu, we are coming live from the capital, Pretoria. This media briefing took place at the Court Classic Suite Hotel in Pretoria. Yes, it just concluded. Just to highlight on what you have asked, Lulu, well, the media briefing began with graphic video footage showing atrocities allegedly committed by the RSF militia, disturbing scenes of abuse, death, and torture that, according to the embassy, were filmed by RSF fighters themselves. So the ambassador said these videos were shown to highlight what he called the true nature of the RSF and to counter what he described as misleading international narratives about the conflict. In his address, Ambassador Osman Abu Fatima Adam Mohammed said the RSF is a terrorist militia that launched a premeditated war on the Sudanese people and refused to integrate into the national army as required under the Juba Peace Agreement. So his key message was that peace can only come through restoring state authority, not by legitimizing the RSF as an equal military or political actor. Now, to your second question, Lulu, on the the latest development on the peace agreement, he made it clear that the Sudanese government does not recognize the RSF's ceasefire announcement as genuine or credible, emphasizing that there has been previous truces where the RSF has always been on the wrong, citing this as a tactic to gain more ground and continue perpetuating violence. The ambassador did not explicitly state whether Khartoum would accept or reject the proposal, but he made it clear that the Sudanese armed forces remain the legitimate defender of the nation, saying it's too early to react, Lulu.
Now, what concerns or priorities did the ambassador highlight about the humanitarian situation in the country, particularly in areas like Darfur and Al-Fasher?
Lulu, the ambassador devoted much of his speech to the devastating humanitarian situation in Al-Fasher and across Darfur. He accused the RSF of committing massacres, ethnic cleansing, and systematic sexual violence, calling the group's actions a deliberate campaign of terror and demographic change. He said more than 2,000 civilians have been killed and hundreds of thousands been trapped without access to food or medicine after a month of siege by RSF forces. He further alleged foreign involvement, particularly from the UEA, in supplying weapons, funding, and mercenaries to the RSF, claiming this support has prolonged the conflict and worsened the suffering of civilians. The ambassador closed his remarks with a plea for stronger international and African Union action to stop what he called crimes against humanity, to ensure justice for the victims in Darfur and beyond, Lulu.
Clearly, the RSF would probably see highlights, or even were probably watching this media briefing. Do you think, or does he think that this will have any impact in the sense that they would then follow through with the ceasefire proposal?
Well, it came to a surprise because not quite often, the Embassy of Sudan does this. We were all, as a media fraternity, asking ourselves, and this comes before the announcement of this ceasefire is when we got that invitation. But just to highlight on what we have said, remember, we had the RSF last year in the country through the Thabo Mbeki, peace and dialogue discussions that took place. That was the inaugural. The second one just happened now with the DRC Lulu. Going back to the Sudanese issue, I asked the ambassador to say, look, there was a peace, discussion that happened here in South Africa where you, as a government, were invited, but also along with the RSF. But to our surprise, only RSF made it, but you did not make it, which is something that also made this conflict to become more and more where we are today. So, but in his response, he said that the RSF always, they have always been, in the side where they will agree on the whatever agreement that has been signed at that particular time, just to, appease the people. But inside, they're continuing with, gaining more ground. So that it's more like it's a face to say, okay, we have signed this agreement, but in actual fact, they are not, accountable for that agreement. So he said there is more room for negotiation. They will look into also roping in the AU, and also they have also asked the AU to reinstate, full membership of the African Union for the Sudanese, as we know that the African Union revoked the membership of the Sudanese Republic because of the conflict that is, ravaging the country, but also affecting much of the continent, more especially, in the Great Lakes and the Horn of Africa, Lulu.
And, just looking at the fact that I beg your pardon, the humanitarian ceasefire is a proposal coming from the United States of America and also several of the Arab nations. The U.S. role in this, are you able to sort of give us details and how they came together with some of these Arab nations?
The involvement of the U.S., because we know the U.S. and the UAE are also involved in the conflict in the Palestine, Lulu, as we know. So there is this sort of vested interest, that is according to the ambassador, where they are trying to divide the nation. So the UAE is supporting more of those Sudanese who look like more Arabic, like, in terms of the tribe, and then whereby now these are the people that are perpetrating violence to those who look, just like you and me, Lulu, as dark as we are, as black as we are, without any, incorporation of ethnicity like colored or so on. So they are saying that the UAE must stop supplying weapons. On that video as well that he was showing us, the ambassador, they showed, the marks of weapons that has the name of the UAE on them, which were the bombs that were detonated by the RSF at Al-Fashar, killing thousands of people. So the US, yes, is taking part, but more the blame is on the UAE, because the US has been involved on this for long, Lulu, and they have failed. South Africa also is part of it. The ambassador also thanking the President Cyril Ramaphosa for his courage and support to the people, of Sudan. In a nutshell, Lulu, it's a complex puzzle. The whole world is watching. You see also the US. Can we trust the US? Just now they're talking about also, starting another war in Nigeria, Lulu, where they're saying that the Christians are being persecuted by the Muslim people. So it's a lot of complex issues, but the Sudanese issue, it's been a very long, outstanding issue that really needs, the whole international community to rally and sit down and look for a permanent solution to this very, very big problem in the continent of Africa.
Michael, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's our reporter, Michael Mbewe, joining us from the capital, Pretoria, on the latest developments from Sudan.
Ready to connect, innovate, and be inspired? It's all happening at Africa's Tech Festival, where Africa's technology meets the world. From the 10th to the 13th of November in Cape Town, join global leaders, investors, and innovators driving the future of Africa's digital economy. Don't miss the continent's biggest week in tech. Get your pass now at africatechfestival.com.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
The sixth ordinary session of the Sixth Pan-African Parliament, currently underway in Johannesburg in the Gauteng province of South Africa, has commemorated the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which remains a milestone for women's rights and gender equality. It is the world's most comprehensive visionary plan ever created to achieve the equal rights of all women and girls. Agreed by 189 governments in 1995 at the 4th World Conference on Women, the platform centers on 12 areas of action referred to as critical areas of concern. These cover jobs and the economy, political participation, peace, the environment, and ending violence against women, amongst others. Nhlanhla Mahlangu has more.
2025 marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The Pan-African Parliament marked the 30th anniversary with a gathering dubbing the declaration as a pioneering global agenda for gender equality. Former African Union Commission Chairperson Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says progress has been made in advancing gender equality and equity in several African countries, but further efforts are required to maximize gains and sustain momentum.
30 years on, there has been progress. Not sufficient, but there has been progress. Africa has now some of the highest rates of women in parliament, with Rwanda leading the world, not just leading Africa, leading the world. And they have more than 60% of women in their parliament. South Africa, Senegal, Namibia, Ethiopia, and others are also showing strong female representations. And women, for the first time after Beijing, have served as heads of state. Not enough, but at least. Liberia, Ethiopia have had a woman president, Tanzania, Mauritius, Namibia now, she's very strong, and Malawi also. And across the African Union and the regions, increasingly influenced policy, diplomacy, and peace building. Women are leading in many of those areas.
Gertrude Mongela, who served as the Secretary General of the 4th UN World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995 and the first President of the Pan-African Parliament, says the 30th anniversary marks a pivotal year for feminism, a time to fight for women and girls' rights, demand gender equality, and insists on balancing power structures so everyone has an equitable chance in the world.
If you look at even budgets in the governments have changed. There are areas which cover the requirements of women, for example, in education, health, and other areas we decided in Beijing. We also have seen that some governments have committed themselves to specific areas which are of great concern to them. For example, here in Tanzania, we concentrated on the health of women, education for women, the human rights of women, and other areas, but those were mostly the areas of concentration. As I've been moving around the world, I've seen that some other countries have concentrated on other things like economic empowerment. And I want to say at this juncture, I'm very proud to say, as we moved on in different countries, we've seen women rising to the positions of power of leadership, which demonstrates the power of women to take positions.
The event brought together activists, academics, diplomats, and young leaders to reflect on 3 decades of progress in advancing women's rights and gender equality. The commemoration also shed light on barriers that persist, such as the lack of women in leadership roles, the gendered digital divide, online harassment, economic inequalities, and the disproportionate burden of unpaid care work on women. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Nhlanhla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Africa Update. with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
It's 12:23 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Africa may be standing at a turning point in its fight against malaria with the rollout of vaccines and growing political commitment. Today, Africa bears 95% of global malaria cases and deaths, with 11 countries in sub-Saharan Africa carrying the bulk of the global burden. Despite 45 countries worldwide being certified malaria-free, just 9 are in Africa. Challenges in accessing funding and implementation risks are slowing the momentum. In line with the SADC Malaria Week this week, Dr. Chris van Straten, a global health advisor, clinical governance at International SOS, joins us now to discuss whether Africa has truly reached a turning point and what is needed to make malaria eradication a reality. Dr. van Straten, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and Lulu, thanks so much for having me back on the show.
Now, what is the latest picture of malaria in the SADC region?
So, Lulu, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Prior to 2019, we in the medical and scientific community were very optimistic because we've really seen a significant reduction, not just in South Africa, but in many of the countries in the SADC region, but also in Africa and Southern Africa. Then, unfortunately, a series of events, including the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of resources need to be funneled to managing the outbreak, the COVID-19 outbreak. And not so unexpectedly, we then also saw malaria cases and numbers going up and deaths going up. And combined with that, this almost perfect storm, literally, of increased rainfall, warmer, wetter winters, and the big tropical storms that buffeted Mozambique, Malawi in the last 2 years really had a huge impact. So that put us on the back foot. But as you've outlined in your intro, there's been some very astounding developments, including these new vaccines.
How effective are the new vaccines for malaria? And will they be able to end malaria for good? And how long of a process are we looking at?
Great questions and complex questions. The first part is the vaccines, especially RS, which came out in 2019, and R21, which was in the last 2 years. The data is looking very encouraging. Now, it's still part of studies that are being done in these different African and SADC countries. The vaccines were designed for children under the age of 5 because it's children under the age of 5 who are most at risk and that's where the highest death rate is. The results they're very encouraging, they're promising. But, and this is an important but, and I've been in this game for over 15 years now in different countries in Africa and also in parts of Asia. We're not going to win just with vaccines. We're going to win by implementing multiple strategies against a parasite and against mosquitoes that are incredibly adaptive. So it's going to be the increased surveillance, mosquito nets, and the amazing mosquito nets with medications embedded in them. It's the prophylaxis medications. It's the early detection and treatment. All these things combined over time. I think in South Africa, we have a good chance of eliminating malaria by 2030. But if we do eradicate it, we still got to make sure that our neighbors get eradicated. Because we're not eradicated in South Africa, but if it's still coming over the border from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, then we can go back to square one. But that's, again, what the SADC Week is all about. It's that different SADC countries really stepping up, stepping forward, support each other and make a difference.
Now, successful vaccine pilot programs, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi. How far can this go? You're speaking of the mosquito nets and the advanced development that some of these nets have now, and how they are protective to a certain extent. But the vaccines will play a bigger role in terms of the eradication, and also you highlight implementation by governments. What is happening when it comes to governments and their response and reaction to dealing with malaria?
That's a good question. The government has been very proactive, and governments need to be proactive. It's not just the individual cost of human suffering and sickness and disease, and then ultimately death if not treated. It's economically exceedingly costly for South Africa and neighboring countries. And it's incredible to see what resources are being put into this. So the different SADC countries, they have commitments to each other, but also working with the Africa CDC, the Bill and Gates Foundation have put forward significant money, but not just funding, also expertise, and helping to drive these different initiatives. And then companies like International SOS, which is a company I work for, we work in over 9,000 countries with 90 countries with 9,000 clients. And exactly this, how do you keep workforce safe? And that's again layered. It's the education, it's the mosquito nets, it's the early detection and treatment, it's the continued surveillance that can make a big impact. So back to your first part of that question, the vaccines are a really powerful tool. And if we through the studies we said they're safe, they're effective, and that antibodies, the healthy body create, they last. That's one of the issues with some of the vaccines now. You need multiple doses to keep triggering the immune system to create these antibodies. And so there's still lots of work that needs to be done there. But I just want to reiterate, there are countries, Egypt, I believe, is celebrating the fact that they've eradicated malaria. And they haven't had malaria cases for 3 years, and they've done that by implementing all those different strategies. So I think, again, it's really important for all of us to be aware of what are the symptoms and signs. Be careful when you're traveling, protect yourself, prophylaxis, and keep an eye on this vaccine space. It's exceedingly interesting and certainly holds promise.
So, Franz Starten, we could go on and on because there is a lot to unpack on this, but we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. It's Dr. Chris van Straten, a Global Health Advisor, Clinical Governance at International SOS, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 and our news headlines up next with Matapelo Mahape.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Headlines this hour. The Lord's Resistance Army victims in Uganda are demanding the arrest of leader Joseph Kony following a confirmation by the International Criminal Court of 39 charges against him for war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder, enslavement and torture. And South Africa's Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, is handing over of his electronic devices to authorities as part of an ongoing investigation into KwaZulu-Natal Province Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations. According to Mkhwanazi, senior police officials, including Mchunu, are involved in a corruption, interfere in police operations and have links to criminal syndicates. And Typhoon Kalmiji has killed over 100 people in the Philippines and caused significant damage in central Vietnam, with winds reaching nearly 150 kilometers per hour. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's kick off with football news. South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns goalkeeper, Coach Kennedy Mweni, has been appointed to Zambia's technical team for the upcoming Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. He'll serve as goalkeeper coach under newly named head coach Moses Sichoni, who replaces Avram Grant just 6 weeks before the tournament begins. Also joining the staff are former PSL players Joseph Musonda as fitness coach and Perry Modapa as assistant coach. Zambia face South Africa in a friendly tag next week in the Eastern Cape province as preparations intensify for the continental showpiece. On to cricket news, South Africa's Proteas star batter Quinton de Kock says he has no regrets about retiring from international cricket 2 years ago, revealing that the break gave him some much-needed hunger for the game. De Kock rolled back the years with an unbeaten 123 in the second one-day international against Pakistan to lead his team to an 8-wicket win at the Iqbal Stadium in Faisalabad. The Proteas fold in September. The wicketkeeper says he had lost the required desire after more than a decade in the green and gold.
To be fair, no. I feel like coming back now, the 2 years I've had a break, I've come back and I found a newfound energy that I think I lost over time, playing so much international cricket all the time. I mean, I don't know how long I played. I think it was close to like 12, 13 years. I was just lucky enough that I retired actually early enough so I can still make a comeback. So I don't regret it. I'm very happy to be back. I want to be back.
On to tennis news, Nick Kyrgios says he has a new lease on life on court after being amazed at sudden improvement in his long-term knee injury, and the Australian hinted at a Grand Slam comeback at Melbourne Park if he makes it through a series of exhibition matches. To the 2022 Wimbledon finalist has dropped the 652nd in the world after playing only 6 matches in 3 years due to a succession of wrist and knee injuries, and would need a wild card from organisers to compete at the Australian Open in January. Let's end with motor racing. Aston Martin have removed at least 7 staff from their Formula One design department as part of a restructure before the 2026 season. Among those to leave the F1 team is Eric Blandon, who was recruited from Mercedes as Deputy Technical Director in 2022, but since the start of this year has been serving as Aerodynamics Director. Some of the staff leaving the F1 program may be retained in other parts of the Aston Martin motorsport business. The group also owns an advanced technologies division where former Chief Technical Officer Andrew Green was moved before the 2023 season. Design legend Adrian Newey joined Aston Martin as managing technical partner in March this year and is leading the team's 2026 car design. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Lekhuleni Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Siyabangena manje. Vito Jabulani Kolele iMagoda. Jabulani is a young man from Giyani in Limpopo in South Africa. Very easy guy, taking things easy. To know me is to know that I love what I do, which I'm crazy about it. So when you hear me on radio, expect the best. Expect great music. Expect great content. Expect 180 minutes of nothing but fun. You'll find me on the morning reset, 3 to 6 a.m., Monday to Friday. Siyabangena baba. Ay. Mbuleke.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Mosito Zuma. In your business news this hour, the mining ministers of Botswana and Angola are set to meet for talks in Botswana's capital as the two Southern African countries seek to take control of Anglo-American diamond unit De Beers. Now, Botswana, which currently owns 15% of De Beers and contributes 70% of its annual rough diamond production, considers the company a strategic national asset. This is despite a slump in global diamond prices that has hurt its economy. Angola initially sought a minority stake in De Beers, but later submitted a bid for a majority stake, setting up a potential bidding war with its neighbor. The National Prosecuting Authority and the NPA in South Africa has formally charged former Public Enterprises Minister Malusi Gigaba. His charges relate to alleged procurement irregularities at rail company Transnet. In a statement posted on social media, Gigaba's office says he received a notice from the NPA to appear in the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court today on charges of corruption. Mmatsheko reports.
These charges essentially relate to his tenure at public enterprises. We do also know that since he has been charged, he will appear at the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court. He will ultimately apply for bail, and he will, after applying for bail, assume that he will send a letter to the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Fikile Mbalula, recusing himself and stepping aside from all responsibilities as an elected National Executive Committee member of the African National Congress.
South African retailer or fashion retailer TFG has reported a 21.3% decrease in half-year earnings as trading conditions remain challenging across Africa, the UK and Australia. The sales were supported mainly by the acquisition of British chain White Stuff. TFG says headline earnings per share fell to 292.6 South African cents in the 6 months ended September 30 compared to the prior year. Operating profit declined 9.9% to $132.85 million, reflecting persistent economic pressures and higher promotional intensity across winter months. The Chinese Consul General in South Africa, Pin King-jung, has praised the growing ties between China and South Africa, describing the relationship as entering a new era of all-round strategic cooperation. Now, speaking at a seminar titled China's Development Global Opportunities in Johannesburg, Penn said that under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa, Xi Jinping, the two nations have achieved remarkable progress, deepening mutually beneficial collaboration across various sectors. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe filed this report.
The relationship between South Africa and China has grown into a model of strategic partnership rooted in mutual respect, shared development goals, and strong political trust. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1998, the two countries have steadily deepened cooperation across trade, infrastructure, education, and technology. Under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Xi Jinping, this partnership has evolved into an all-round strategic cooperative relationship in the new era.
And finally, Chinese exports fell in October after months of front-loading U.S. orders to beat President Donald Trump's tariffs. The world's second-largest economy has pushed hard to diversify its export markets since Trump won last November's presidential election, bracing for a resumption of the trade war that dominated his first term in office and seeking closer trade ties with Southeast Asia and the European Union. But no other country comes close to matching China's annual sales of more than $400 billion in goods to the U.S. A loss economist estimate has cut China's exports growth by roughly 0.3% of the GDP. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,439 naira. In Botswana is 13.33. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 24, and in Zambia is 22 kwacha 29. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5.35. Russia is 81 rubles 29. India is 88 rupees 62. China at 7.12. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 37. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,009 and platinum at $1,550 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.05 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Mmatsheko Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Ready to connect, innovate, and be inspired? It's all happening at Africa's Tech Festival, where Africa's technology meets the world. From the 10th to the 13th of November in Cape Town, join global leaders, investors, and innovators driving the future of Africa's digital economy. Don't miss the continent's biggest week in tech. Get your pass now at africatechfestival.com.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Oh, thank you to Nosipho Zuma with our business news. It is 12:42 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Let's look at other stories making headlines across the globe. Now, pirates have boarded a ship traveling to South Africa from India off the coast of Somalia after they fired machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades at the vessel. Now, the ship was carrying gasoline. The crew are believed to be safe and accounted for. A private security firm, Ambre, says Somali pirates have been active in the region in recent days. The attack comes amid a resurgence of piracy in the region, which had declined after peaking more than a decade ago. There were at least 7 reported incidents last year, and several fishing vessels have already been seized by pirates this year, according to the International Maritime Bureau. And the International Criminal Court has confirmed charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity against Uganda's warlord Joseph Kony in absentia. Kony has been charged with 39 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder, rape, the use of child soldiers, sexual slavery and forced pregnancy between the years 2002 and 2005. An arrest warrant against Kony was issued in 2005. Kony could also be charged with 10 counts of crimes he is accused of committing himself directly, linked to 2 victims who were his forced wives. For that, he faces charges of enslavement, forced marriage, forced pregnancy, torture, and persecution on the grounds of age and gender. Prosecutors have welcomed the ruling and called it a crucial step in holding Kony accountable for the crimes attributed to him. And finally, France says Mali's decision to turn to Russia and armed groups linked to Moscow have proven to be a failure. France Foreign Ministry spokesperson Pascal Coffenvor says they are following the situation in Mali with a great deal of attention and genuine concern. For more than a decade, France deployed troops to the Sahel region, starting in 2012 when Mali asked the former colonial power to intervene to stop militants taking control of its capital, Bamako. The French were eventually forced to leave the region after a wave of anti-French sentiment. These are just some of the stories making headlines across the globe. It is 12:45 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority has formally charged ANC NEC member and former Minister of Public Enterprises, Dr. Malusi Gigaba, in connection with the ongoing proceedings related to procurement activities at Transnet in court in the capital, Pretoria. The NPA had summoned Gigaba to appear this morning. Gigaba says he will give his full cooperation. SABC News reporter Mmatsheko has more.
Within the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, his links to the notorious alleged corrupt Gupta brothers in the capture of state-owned enterprises to build up the wealth of the Gupta brothers using the coffers of the state and stealing from the poor within the public. But yesterday, EFF leader Julius Sillo Malema did question Advocate Johnson, the head of IDEC, yesterday of any imminent arrest that she may be aware of. Let's just listen to that exchange between Julius Sillo Malema and Advocate Johnson.
Advocate, is there any arrest of high-profile politicians and the cases that you said there's overwhelming evidence that is going to happen anytime soon by IDEC? Will we be seeing any arrest of high-profile people, especially those involved in PPEs and Bosasa and those kind of things anytime soon?
So, Honorable Malema, the PPE matters are all being dealt with by the DPCI and the Specialized Commercial Crime Unit. In terms of matters that we have in our space that arise from the commissions, yes, where there is evidence, there is going to be arrests, and there are some arrests that are in the pipeline.
Any
have to
former
have-
minister who might be arrested tomorrow or this week?
I cannot comment.
There's one coming. Now, if you had violated a law when you sat in the panel that employed your husband, is it not within any reasonable South Africans to go and open a case if a law is violated and not come and want to grandstand and create an impression that they've got some big scoop which is non-existent?
You put it correctly and rather eloquently.
Secondly, as lawmakers and as citizens and as law enforcement, will it not help our institutions if we don't become fanatics and that those we like are allowed to be above the law and those we don't like, they can be subjected to any form of harassment because we don't like them? You have a duty to protect the Constitution. You have a duty to protect the law. It doesn't matter whether a person is a high profile. It doesn't matter whether a person occupies strategic position in crime intelligence or NPA or anything of that sort. The principle of no one is above the law applies to all of us, including our favorites. Am I correct?
That was EFF leader Julius Silo Malema in that exchange between himself and the advocate Johnson, particularly looking into these allegations of state capture, allegations of wrongdoing within the police, allegations that the police are cherry picking those who are powerful and those who are low-hanging fruits within the political machinations, and only arresting those that they don't like, and those that they like because they are powerful, they leave them and not prosecute them and investigate them and parade them to the public. Particularly if you look at how he raised issues pertaining to African global operations, formerly trading as Busasa. It also ultimately now boils down to what Julius Malema asked, that are you aware of any imminent arrest that is going to take place within the next few days? Hence, Dr. Malusi Nkanyezi Kigaba now arrested for the procurement of those locomotives at Transnet. And we are told that there may be further arrests in the next week or two pertaining to allegations of wrongdoing and financial irregularities that took place at Transnet.
And that was SABC reporter Samkele Mmaseko ending that report. Now, yesterday, we brought you the first part of a story about an app to assist gender-based violence victims called GRIT, or Gender Rights in Tech. Now, it is one of the first free AI tools made by African creators to tackle gender-based violence. The app was created after its founder, Leonora Timmer's relative, who was just 19 years old and 9 months pregnant, was killed and her body dumped on the side of a highway near Cape Town in the Western Cape province of South Africa in the year 2020. The aim of the app is to offer support and help gather evidence that could later be used in legal cases against abusers. Our founder, Leonora Timmer, told my colleague Suzanne Paxton that while people wanted to talk about their abuse, they were wary of traditional routes like police and feel that existing systems are failing victims.
The app is available on Google Play and iOS, and it's completely free, and it's also data free. So if you don't have data, we reverse bill on the data, so we cover the cost of the data.
As we sit here, I'm downloading the app. I think it's such an awesome idea. And the main reason behind this is obviously to help people in these situations. What about people that are sort of not tech savvy or maybe feel that, AI is not for them? We still have a lot of debate going on around AI. This is a sort of a good example as to how this can help, I think. How do you explain this to people?
So I think that's exactly why, we talk about co-creation of technology. So I didn't build it, and my team didn't build it. We really built it in communities with people that are often excluded from building this kind of tech. So the idea of this approach is that it is accessible, it is easy to use, it's built specifically for communities where the digital divide is bigger, but it also holds the voice of that community in it. Usually, for example, is trained very specifically on very local language, nuance, cultural nuance that is specific to different communities, she knows, for example, if you're in St. Lucia in KZN, these kind of words are used more specifically versus if you're in Cape Town and Kailicha, the Xhosa is quite different to where you are in Lusikisiki, for example. So we've been very intentional in building her in a way that feels to people like it is built with them for them rather than a tool created for a community that is not represented within it.
And have you had any feedback from, people in terms of when they used it, how they feel about it? Are there some things that you're going to improve at some stage?
Yes, we've had lots of feedback. We've done extensive testing. So I think the positive feedback we've got is people are often really surprised that she does understand cultural, like very specific things. Or I think also the image in which she created means that a lot of people feel like, she looks somewhat like them, and we get that a lot. Like, wow, her tone really sounds like me. And she's trained also quite specific to reply in the way you speak. And then we definitely need improvements, like without a doubt. It's a long process. The language is still exceptionally problematic, even though we've done a lot of training on it. So especially if you're speaking in like Tsonga or Venda, some of the smaller languages, she still hallucinates or glitches and replies in a different language. So that's a lot of the work that we're going to be doing next year.
Wow, that must be quite a bit of a thing because it's, the language in South Africa, we don't have academic language really for all the languages. So that's quite a thing that you're attempting. All right, so anybody can download it. Anybody can get access, and is it easier for us to maybe speak to somebody that is faceless?
I think that's exactly what it is. So I think, gender-based violence is still so stigmatized, and not in a specific population group. I think people sometimes think gender-based violence sits there or it sits there. It doesn't. It sits everywhere, and the stigma is as great in all of the places it sits. So I think what people like about the bot and the feedback that we repeatedly get on it is that they don't feel judged. Young people can come in, talk about things that culturally, essentially, they can't really talk about freely at home. Or, maybe you're in a community that's exceptionally traditional, all of those kind of things. And I think what people really always say about Zuzi is, I was able to talk freely without feeling judged.
That is awesome. If you have any words of encouragement for people out there, but I mean, we know this is a real problem in communities across the board in South Africa, what would it be?
I think it's just knowing that you're not alone. I think it's very isolating going through these situations. And I think especially, look, it's not only a female problem, but I think women obviously are more affected. But I think knowing that there are people out there that are there to stand with you and reach out if you need help.
All right. Just a little bit more about the app. So you get information, you keep it, people can contact you if there's an emergency. How does it work?
So it's about to be re-released. A new version is going to come out next week. The way it stands is that there's a vault in it. You can upload evidence in there. We keep it for up to 10 years. So audio, narrative, video that can then hopefully be used in court. When you press the panic button, it also live streams to the vault for 20 seconds with the idea of using that cell phone data to increase the chance of prosecution. And then in the updated version, obviously Zuzi now also sits in there, so you have your chatbot that you can talk to if you have anything specific that you want to talk about. And then the other thing we have included that's a new feature is a human rights violation tracking tool. So if you go, for example, to a nonprofit, to the police, to a hospital, and you're treated in a way that then re-traumatizes you, or you're not offered services, or you're any of the things that we see happening in the space, you can also use the tool to report that.
Tell me, and if I want to access Zuzi on the app, how do I do that?
So she's only going to come up in the new version, so hopefully from the end of next week. But if you want to access her now, she is available web-based, and you go to www.chatgbv.app.
That was Grit founder Leonora Timmer speaking to my colleague Suzanne Paxton. Well, it is that time of the day where we say a happy Friday to the Upside team. It is Tebogo Lekhuleni. How are you today?
Fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks.
This afternoon on the Upside, it's an international affair because in the first hour we get into conversation with drag performer, internationally acclaimed drag performer, actor and motivational entertainer Latrice Royale, who will be returning to South Africa after 13 years for a set of performances in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. And then later on we get into conversation with our DJ, our internationally acclaimed DJ Chaotic, who will be joining us in studio. And then the Queen of Gqom, award-winning Babes Wodumo will also be joining us.
Yes, that is the Queen of Gqom. Yes.
She really is. She really is. We can't even dispute at this point. She's back after hiatus from music. She recently dropped an album. She just came back from, I think it's Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, having sold out there. So we'll be having a conversation with her. Very exciting.
All that and more coming up at the top of the hour on The Upside with Tebogo Lekhuleni and Mmatsheko Mosito. For myself, Lulu Gabu and the Africa Update team, it's been a great day. It's been a great week. Thank you for joining us and continue with us on all our social media platforms. And thank you to the team, Tracy Bumgard, our producer, our technical operator, Dumela Mukwena, and social media. It is Fiso Hlope and Talent Butelezi. It's been a great one. Be safe. Bye-bye.